So the Welsh Mountain Sheep, they're a heritage breed bred in Wales and they've been bred in Wales for centuries. They're a hardy, easy lambing, and have good outdoor mothering skills, which made them very well suited for open air life in the Welsh hills. Typically, the flocks of Welsh mountain sheets are kept out most of the year. Like a lot of these more rustic and heritage breeds that we've studied, they're very good foragers. So they're very good at finding food, and they don't need to be hovered over by a farmer. They're not soft-footed or tender skinned, so they're left out most of the year to forage, and they're rounded up only several times a year for lambing, shearing, inoculations, things like that. The black Welsh mountain sheep are a small dual purpose breed that provide excellent mild tasting meat and a completely black, dense, and durable sheep. They are a color subtype of the larger family of Welsh mountain sheep, which have traditionally a wide range of colors in the larger family. So let's see, the mountain sheep and the black mountain sheep occasionally produce sheep of other colors, but the black Welsh mountain are now mostly maintained by farmers as a separate strain of sheep. And the background of that is really interesting, and we'll get into that a little later. But like the other Welsh mountain sheep, it is raised mainly in the hill country in Wales, but also kept in Ireland, and now in the USA there is a growing population of black Welsh mountain sheep, and the worldwide population sits at about 10,000 animals. They are easy to handle, ideal for farms where hardiness and good mothering and food efficiency are significant assets. So, in other words, they can take poor and scarce food and turn it into good meat and good wool and make the absolute most of that amount of food. They don't need to be grain fed or overfed. Let's see, here we go. Rams have a set of attractive horns that curl around the sides of their faces, and ewes are hornless or polled. They make a perfect small farm sheep because they're known for their sturdiness and hardiness, but also the resistance to fly strike and foot infections. So they're easy to keep, and they're easy for kids to keep because they're small. Apart from being entirely black, the black Welsh mountain is like other Welsh mountain sheep. They're small and sturdy with no wool on their face or legs. Their best known traits are their hardiness and self-sufficiency. And many black Welsh mountain hill flocks, as I said before, taste no other food in their life except the short upland grass. And yet they adapt well to improved lowland management when they have a chance to be raised that way. So while they are hill sheep and they absolutely thrive in that environment, they do even a little bit better in lowland areas with more lush grasses and the possibility of being grain fed over the winter. As efficient scavengers of rough untilled land, they are valued in a greater frame size by generation and give heavier wool clips when they do have the advantage of better food. The ewes lamb very confidently out in the wild, in the open, and mortality rates for lambs are very low under normal outdoor management. Lambing typically takes place from February to March, with lambing percentages in the order of 175% per ewe in registered flocks, although individual flocks record percentages well over 200%. So I would imagine those might be flocks which are under some kind of mixed management or lowland management. Okay, in addition, the ewes cross well with other meat producing rams, other breeds, as mule sheep for birthing prime lamb. And again, that's a practice we've talked about with a couple different breeds that we've studied, including the Dorset, and it's not coming to me at the moment, but sheep that are literally bred to be mothers of better sheep. So they're valued for their mothering skills and their ability to birth multiple lambs. And then they're bred with rams that have other fine traits like very good meat and lots of wool. And between the two of them, they create lambs that have a really good mix of all those great traits. So the black Welsh Mountain ewes are good mothers. They're prolific deep milkers. So the multiple births that they produce are well fed by them. They can milk well. So they produce offspring that are vigorous, quick to suckle, and fast growing. The average weight of a mature ewe is around 100 pounds. So compared to some of the breeds we've looked at lately, that's fairly small. And the average ram weighs between 132 and 143. I always think it's funny that the pound numbers for this are really specific. Like not 130 to 150, but 132 to 143. So these are just not big sheep like the Border Leicester that we just studied last time, which can top 300 pounds, or the Wensleydale, which can come close to almost 400 pounds. So these are much smaller sheep with shorter legs. So, oh, and I do have pictures. So let's take a look, since we're talking about what they look like and their characteristic. Let's see. Here we go with just a general. This is what they look like. These are ewes. You can see they don't have the horns. And they're out in an apple orchard grazing. So it's hard to tell. It's hard to tell that they're a small sheep in this picture because apple trees aren't big. So those trees look big and then the sheep look big next to them, but apple trees really aren't that big. So they're very, very dark. And as we'll get into a little bit later, they, unlike a lot of dark sheep that are born dark and then lighten up over time, the black Welsh tend to maintain their color. I'm going to share another photo of a ram or two. Here's a really nice picture of the ram's profile, its head. You can see it has a little bit of that Roman nose, but with a divot in it, not quite as Roman as the Border Leicester had, with that big curvy face that curved outward. And the head, you can see the head is free of wool and it's nice and smooth. The horns curl around the ears and the ears come through the middle. And then you can see this horn is clipped a little bit. And that's just when you've got lots of sheep on a farm, that's just a smart thing to do to prevent them hurting each other. Okay, let's see. I'll share one more. I couldn't find any little lammy pictures. So let's see. We don't have any of the children, but here are a couple that I would think are probably in the 9 months. You can see the one on the right here has shorter horns than the one on the left, and the one on the left has shorter horns than the one we just saw previously. And these two have fleeces that have lighter tips. And that comes from being outside, being in the sun. They get a little bit of bleached by the sun. This is an important aspect of the wool. Some farms choose to cover or coat the sheep. They call it rugging, to keep the fleeces very, very dark. And other farms choose the natural way of just letting the sun do what it will with the tips and the root. Trust me, this is a very, very dense fleece. So the root stays nice and black, even though those tips are turning a little bit red. And there is a market for that. When that wool is blended together, it produces kind of a reddish brown as opposed to a black brown. So there is a market for that. And so as a farmer, you can choose whether to go with a light black or a black with your animals. Hang on just a minute, Lindy. I'm going to go back to full screen here. Okay. Okay, go ahead.
I was just wondering which one of these two is our yarn. The blend or the darker.
Ours is black.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah. You'll see what I'm talking about, and we're gonna move through the whole discussion of textile in a few minutes, so that you can really see it. Oh, that's right. I wanted to get a picture of that. I couldn't get a picture of that before I left, but I'm at my mom's. But since I got to my mom's, I found a picture of hers. So I'll show it to you it'll make sense in a few minutes. Okay. So in addition to being good mothers and producing lots of offspring and being really good wool producing sheep, the Black Welsh also produce a superior meat that retains a mild flavor well into the mutton years. So it's not mandatory that you slaughter all the lambs at a certain age and glut the market with the meat. You can basically feed the meat into the market at whatever pace works for you, and that really helps farmers make the most of that commodity as well. The yields from the sheep are good, with a favorable ratio of retail cuts to the live weight of the animal. And anyway, it's a very acceptable, more than acceptable, a very desirable meat that also has quite a bit of value. So I'll be right back. I want to grab that picture. Okay. So let's get into a little bit of the history of the breed and the genetics, etc. So the first records of Welsh mountain sheep, just the larger family of Welsh mountain sheep, date all the way back to the Middle Ages. But those are the records that date back that far, which means that in all likelihood, they were bred and kept even further back in time. The genotype of the Black Welsh mountain sheep in particular can be traced all the way back to early Scandinavia, which suggests that its ancestors include sheep that were brought to Wales by early Vikings. So there's a lot of there is a good genetic record that, like many of the sheep we've studied, brings the genetics back to those northern European breeds that we've discussed a few different times, which are like the basal breeds of sheep. The first records, I already said that. During the Middle Ages, Welsh mountain sheep were raised by monks as well as the larger Welsh population. They were highly prized for their meat quality, and the wool was used for clothing. The monks used wool from the Black mountain sheep within their herds to make cloth for their habits. The particular color of wool they used was known as codu, which is Welsh for reddish brown, a color that resulted from blending the whole lock from the deep black brown root to the sunlight and tips. Monks may have worn Cornu wool as a sign of poverty or as a circumstance of thrift, since white wool sold for higher prices than any other color, and lighter browns, grays, and then blue black were all, while not highly commercially desirable, they were all more highly desirable than the dark brown that the black Welsh mountain sheep produced. So these dark wools had most of the time had more value for producers to keep and use for household items. And in the case of the monks, you might have seen before the where am I here? There's my camera. The Franciscan monks in their kind of reddish brown habits. This is what we're talking about, the monk habits. So anyway, it really is that kind of reddish, has a little red tint to it. Okay. Whereas ours really has in the light not so much of a red, it's more of a bluish black than that. It's a little warmer than a true blue black, but it's not as red as, it's not as light as that chocolatey one. As wool and fabric production became more and more industrialized through the 1800s, the demand for white wool kept increasing, and black sheep were seen as an unfortunate chance occurrence that shepherds simply had to put up with. While early shepherds may have had limited success in reducing the number of black sheep, this all began to change during the 1800s when Gregor Mendel discovered the fundamental laws of inheritance, establishing some of the basics for how dominant and recessive traits were passed on. Soon, the information on how to selectively breed was disseminated through articles, lectures, and presentations all over Europe and Great Britain. And shepherds began to apply this newly discovered breeding science to gradually weed out sheep with unwanted or dark colorations and other traits, and to produce more of the white wool so desirable by the textile industry. And we have talked before with other breeds about how the breed got down to its very last couple of sheep, and then suddenly someone decided, I really love that. I really love that color, and I'm gonna do everything I can to save this sheep, or I really don't want to lose this breed, and I'm gonna do everything I can to save this sheep. So so that's something that happened with a lot of breeds, especially across Great Britain, and you know, and the United States, because the United States wool industry was young in the first 50 to 100 years of what we can call an American wool industry. Sheep were still being imported right up until the late 1800s, really. And so Great Britain was wanting to produce not only enough white sheep for their own textile industry, but for the textile industry around the world. And we've talked about that when we talked about the development of breeds like Polworth and the Punta Arenas and different ones like that that were bred only to be white. So around Great Britain, more and more farmers are successfully reducing the stock that they have of colored sheep and increasing white sheep. But interestingly, during the same period that most of those shepherds were breeding to make their flocks whiter, a group of Welsh shepherds decided to use the same science to develop and enhance an all-black breed of sheep. So they wanted to go in the other direction. Whether it was a kind of chalk it up to their contrary nature or the desire to preserve a uniquely Welsh wool color isn't known, but more likely it was due to the popularity of the whole dark woolly sheepskins that they were already producing. So the fleeces were valuable, the meat was valuable, but also the skins, were very valuable as household items and as decorative items. So they were a very functional part of every Welsh home, and these farmers wanted to preserve the ability to produce that. There's also evidence that the reddish brown, the Kodu wool from the Black Welsh mountain sheep was in relatively high demand during the mid 1800s. So while the focus was definitely on white wool, and colored wool demanded, for the most part, almost no appreciable amount of money at market, the Black Welsh mountain wool was valuable. And while the sources I read didn't say why, I would guess that the softness of this wool is probably one reason, that it was a nice textile wool that could be used for dark textiles for men's clothing, which, men are half the population. They, at the time, were wearing a lot of wool in suits. And the other thing is, the textile industry was producing a lot of uniform goods, a lot of military clothing and goods. So there was likely a pretty good market for wearable dark wool. It's just that a lot of the dark wool that could come to market was not considered wearable. It was more, it was coarser and more, suited for rugs and upholstery and things like that. Okay, so the demand for the dark wool plus the sheep's reputation for flavorful mutton probably saved this breed and its wool from disappearing entirely. Because don't forget, it's not a white wool producing breed. If that wool wasn't valuable in some way, it would have gone extinct, because it doesn't produce a usable wool of any other kind in terms of 1800s marketing. As time went on, Welsh breeders continued to develop and refine the black sheep as a dual breed for both meat and wool. For instance, a small number of wild mouflon sheep were introduced from Sardinia in 1906 and from Corsica in 1908, and they were introduced to Lambay Island, which is off the coast of Dublin, where they were bred. And then those mouflon sheep, which are, I don't know if you're familiar with that breed. We haven't done it in barn box, but it's more of a merino type breed, fluffy, short fiber, in relatively speaking. And they were crossed with the Black Welsh mountain sheep, and the inheritance of their wool color was studied. So the first Black Welsh mountain sheep breeders association was formed in the UK in 1920, establishing the breed as a unique sheep and raised for black fleeces. And of course, one of the reasons to establish an association is when people start crossbreeding the sheep and bringing in other genetics, you want to start keeping track of what's what. And so the Sheep Breeders Association usually comes out of that process. Often at first, it's just a matter of keeping a book by a few farmers, and it grows into an organization that it can grow into an organization that has a more far-reaching network of breeders who can trade breeding stock, who can maybe even develop political power in some places of the world. Okay, the Black Welsh mountain sheep was introduced into the United States in 1973 through a single importation of 3 rams, 13 ewes by Mr. Tom Wyman of New York. And ever since then, The fleece from the black Welsh mountain sheep has generated special interest among hand spinners and weavers in the USA. As only 2 rams from that importation survived the quarantine, the U.S. flock is genetically descended from those 2 sire ram lines, with only an additional importation of frozen semen once in the late 1900s to add genetic diversity to the U.S. flocks. 9 ewes form the foundation population. So when we have talked about how little it takes to develop a sheep breed, this is a really good example. This isn't developing a new breed, but it's developing a whole other continental population of sheep from 15 sheep, 2 rams and 13 ewes. And that just tells you, like, you know, and that was in 1973, and by 1990, you know, we're already looking to genetically diversify this population. So that's just amazing that in 17 years you can produce enough generations to already be seeking to diversify, because sheep produce consistently, frequently. They can produce every year for, you know, up until their 8th or even 10th year. And so you can get a new population or a new breed even within the space of a decade. The first U.S. breed registry was established in 1990. There are just about 1,600 black Welsh mountain sheep in North America today, with and those statistics are actually right up to date. They were the last census of those, or the records were last updated in 2023. So probably due again soon to be updated. But let's see, there are about 1,600 with an additional 8,500 in the UK and Ireland. This makes the wool from these sheep is relatively uncommon, but I know I've heard of it for a long time. It's not unknown, or it's not impossible to get a hold of. And with the rising interest, both in the US and in Great Britain, on preserving and maintaining and proselytizing about the wool history and market that they have, in Great Britain at least, there are many successful government subsidized and funded ways that people have that have contributed to preserving and maintaining and producing more of sheep like the black Welsh mountain. One of these things is like subsidizing co-ops and old mills, so that the ability to take advantage of local sheep populations remains in place. You know, when a mill closes and leaves the area without any resources for milling, it can drastically change the way that farmers do business, and whether they hold sheep long enough to produce a fleece or whether they market them as lambs as early as possible. So it changes a lot. So keeping the mills and around, and keeping the public, having these public awareness campaigns funded by the British Wool Board are really helpful in instilling a sense of pride in Welsh people about what they actually grow there, and how it, you know, it's part of their heritage and it goes so far back, and we can't let it die out. And those efforts really help for all of us to be able to have access to this wool. The U.S. Breed Association follows the UK breed standards. So the 2 organizations maintain the same standards. of, height, weight, conformity, breeding principles, rules for breeding, um, rules for blood percentages, things like that. The most unusual point of this is the management of the sheep's tails. The black Welsh mountain sheep must retain the long, undocked tail in order to be able to be a registered black Welsh mountain sheep. And many sheep, their tails are docked because it can cause an unsanitary situation near their genitals, and for birthing and like that. And also, in many sheep, the long tail is a target for flies, and they can get infections from flies. So a lot of farmers dock the tails. However, the black Welsh mountain sheep are, resistant to that hazard because they are fly strike resistant. So they just don't get those infections that flies can pass along, or the attraction of the fly. It does, the longer tail does provide some protection for the udder. So there is a balance there to strike. In some breeds, you just want to keep as clean as possible in the birthing area of the mother, especially as it gets closer to time for birthing. Let's see now. Meat and fleece products. So the fleece is a dark black color, or the reddish black that we talked about before. The wool is completely black, short, dense, and firm to handle. And when we say dense, we mean it's so dense you can't see the skin when you part the wool. It's very dense. And it ranges in Bradford counts from 48 to 56, or in micron range from 26 to 36. So 26 is really just outside the merino range. So you are talking about a very medium coarse fiber and a medium length fiber. So 26 to 36 is very doable, and very much makes it an all-purpose fiber. It's not too coarse, but it's not so fine that it's not sturdy. And it makes for great garments that are gonna get a lot of wear, or household items that can be very, very useful for a long time. Let's see. Like other breeds we've covered, the U.S. breeders tend to aim for the lower micron range, and U.S. flocks tend to produce slightly finer wool and slightly better overall wool quality. This is true, if you remember, of the Jacob as well. The British Jacob, there's a lot of variation between coarseness and quality, and in the U.S. Produced Jacob, while there might be variations in quality, it's possible to get much better quality and finer quality in the U.S. than in Great Britain. And same thing for the black Welsh mountain sheep. The fleece weight, the total fleece weight in the UK ranges from 2.2 to 5.5 pounds. It's almost completely free of hemp, like I said before. The individual fibers have a significant crimp, so it's quite wavy, and the crimp is not organized into the locks. It's not organized within the locks, which blend together like in a mass, except at their tips. So I guess what I'm trying to say is it's like the fleece doesn't separate into locks until the very tip of the fiber. And that could be because the sun bleaching at the tips kind of changes the quality of that section of the lock, and that could contribute to the separation of the locks. There's a good market here and in Europe now for high quality spinning fleeces and durable wool products. When cured, the rich, deep pile black fleece skins are in high demand as floor rugs and chair backs. And again, they're very durable, so you can use them and walk on them for years. So the black Welsh mountain wool can it shows a range of hand, I guess you would say. It can be very soft and fluffy and almost like a Corriedale or a Merino. You know, it's getting really close to that kind of a feel. But it can be it can also be kind of crisp, like the Cheviot wool. So it just depends where the sheep have been eating, what they've been eating. Diet plays a very consequential role in the softness and quality of the fleece, and also the length. Well, individual fibers tend to be 2 to 3.5 inches. You can get locks that are a little bit longer if you're feeding really well. So traditionally within the textile industry, good black Welsh mountain wool was always found to be suitable for cardigans and jackets and durable slacks. Well, the more the coarser, maybe slightly less quality fiber, better for woven blankets and tweed fabrics and upholstery, etc. Don't forget that when the car industry began to grow in the early 1900s, there was, for some time, some decades, a high demand for wool for upholstery, for car upholstery specifically, because it was very durable and easy to get and cheap. So all of those dark wools that couldn't be, used for dyeing in the clothing industry could be moved along into the upholstery industry or the car industry or the rug industry. Just the wool just keeps getting moved down the line until someone uses it for something. And nowadays we're even using very low quality wool for insulation for housing and things like that, instead of fiberglass, making rolled insulation out of poor quality wool. Which, I don't mean to get off on a tangent, but wool is anti-flammable, so it's flame retardant. So that makes even more sense than some other things. So today, the black Welsh mountain sheep are bred as much for decorative value as for commercial importance. The wool is sufficiently fine, soft, and densely stapled to qualify as a specialty type of wool, and the fleece can be blended to good effect with other wools. Because it's always black, it can be used undyed for lots of different types of cloth, especially for the tweed industry and the menswear industry. Average staple length and micron count make it a solidly medium fine wool that's useful for a wide range of products. Sources indicate that there is also a market for the pelts, the skins, in the USA, Canada, and Japan. The fleece has generated special interest for home spinning and weaving. The wool now demands its own grade by the Wool Marketing Board, and that's the British Wool Marketing Board. So it has its own special class. Most dark-wooled sheep gray with age, but the black Welsh mountain sheep tend to maintain their color. And today, as I said before, most are coated or rugged to preserve the deep black color of the wool, which, because that super black wool is so highly prized by crafters, hand spinners, weavers, knitters. That said, it isn't uncommon to find some of the sun-bleached reddish brown tips blended into the wool top. In some blends, the red really kind of disappears into the wool. and comes back as the the red tips normally disappear in the processing, lending, instead of just coming back as a streak, it kind of lends an overall depth and tone and a kind of glow to the overall fiber. Like I said before, the breed also produces premium quality meat with a minimum of wasteful fat. It is richly colored meat, full flavored, but mild, even when butchered a little later in life. Finished purebred lambs average 30 to 40 pounds per carcass weight. And that's all the factoids that I have. Questions, you guys? Sheila?
Yeah, at the very beginning, you said that the population worldwide is about 10,000 sheep.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me like how many merino sheep and cashmere goats are out there so I can get an idea of the rarity?
Well, I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head, but there are millions and millions of merino sheep. I mean, just in New Zealand alone are like millions. And some of the other, like, a lot of the ones we're studying this year are more, if not rare, they're not endangered, but they're rare enough that their numbers, they number in the tens of thousands, let's say.
Out of the sheep we've done this year, is this the rarest, if you will, or least populated?
No. First of all, Punta Arenas is, I don't know if you remember that wool school chat, but there are lots and lots of those. What was the first one we did? The Polypay, Polypay is a modern breed, and there's no limit on the numbers that could be produced there. The true border Leicester is probably considered, if not a rare breed, like it's a heritage breed, and just, I think any heritage breed, and especially dark producing heritage sheep, are going to be on at least our list of low numbers worldwide. Okay. You're not going to find millions of those sheep because they're just not profitable outside of the craft industry. Yeah, I hopefully by Wednesday I will have looked that up, Sheila. I don't really have a good, my brain is firing on different cylinders today, but I'm
no worries. And I could also look it up too. I was just curious.
Yeah, having trouble coming up with like a gauge on that. But you know who would know? Inspector Google. Okay. Anybody else have a question? I know Lindy must have a question. Oh, you're muted, Lindy.
Sorry. No, my real question was the color. And if it looks like I'm waving, it's because I'm doing this. This is Lewis here. Okay. There we go.
Hey, Michelle, I wanted to address something that you asked last time about why the wool soap would be removing lanolin.
Oh, yeah.
And I figured out why after the talk. I went, I saw the packets in the kitchen of our shop, and it's because they're this soap promises to be hypoallergenic. So it's literally formulated for people who have lanolin allergies.
Oh.
So some people, I mean, well, technically no human being should be allergic to wool because it literally has the same makeup as our own hair. There are people that are allergic to lanolin. And so washing that out, being able to wash most of that out would be important to somebody like that.
Okay.
So that answers that old question, but a good one. Why?
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And some sheep get sheared twice a year. Do you know if they do that with the Black Welsh or no?
The fleece doesn't grow long enough for that. So yeah,
that's what it sounded like.
But. Yeah, that's for like long wool sheep. But these sheep, their fleece, the the fleeces, the fiber is not long. I think it tops out at 4 inches. So, and with most of them having like 2.5 to 4 inch length fiber. So, I mean, only if you had some kind of skin issue that you wanted to, or maybe, what do they call that? It's not called, scrofula. If you had basically that, issue with your sheep where they get that dandruff, it's called scrofula. You might want to shear your sheep down just to keep their skin healthy, but I don't know anybody. I personally don't know anybody who does that. Hi, Michelle. Michelle's here to show us the sweater sample.
Hi, everyone.
But your camera is moving around constantly, and we're not getting a good focus on your face.
Oh, sorry. I'm in Barb's office. Don't tell her that. I'm gonna swip.
Go in the shop and get the stand that I use for the.
Oh, okay.
You know, it's on top of the coffee table. There's that metal stand that's for holding your phone.
Yeah. Sorry.
I mean, if no one's there, you can. Oh, there we are.
Yeah.
So that's
That's
the sign that
beautiful.
we were talking about earlier. The pattern should be ready soon. It's a really fun cable to knit. The center cable has some ribs that are 2 stitches wide. And as you can see, there's like, it's really like one cable overlaying another cable. So it's like fat. Can you move back a little bit, Michelle? It's like fat kind of lozenges that are lay on top of squiggles. And the fat lozenges are 3-stitch ribs, and the underneath ones are 2-stitch ribs, and they're constantly crisscrossing. So that adds to the dominance of the larger cable that's overlaying the smaller cable. And then the openings in the cable are filled with garter stitch, and it has garter details throughout on the raglan panels and stripes down the front.
What's the name of the pattern?
Dark Roast. It's not published yet.
Okay.
We were talking about it at the start. It's with the tech editor now, and with luck, we'll be able to publish it not this Wednesday, but next Wednesday. Okay. And this is the medium size. It took 4 and a tiny bit of a 5th skein, but I mean, it would take 5 skeins. And the side seam on this is 14 inches. So if you wanted to lengthen it at all, you would need more, of course. Yeah. So, and the pattern, this time the pattern just includes the one neckline, one leg. But I am knitting a second sample in Kent worsted. So let me run and get that just so you can see it in the light color too.
I love how the cable down the arms just go right in the center and just really frame the whole picture of the sweater.
I hope the quality is good. The light in here is a little bit weird.
Yeah, no, you're coming out fine.
Awesome. Yeah, this is a really nice sweater. I wanted to grab the skein.
I'm about halfway up the yoke of the second sample in the Kent worsted. Whoa. That's what it looks like in a light color. And obviously it's not washed or anything, but yeah, it really pops. And I'm getting the same gauge with this yarn, but this feels heavier than the black Welsh mountain sheep. So it's a lot of fun to knit. It's knit all in one piece. Well, you knit the sleeves and then the body, and then you join everything up, but it's all knit in the round.
So would Targhee Tango work for the sweater?
I'm gonna make one for myself in Targhee. That's my plan. I haven't swatched for gauge yet. but my plan is to knit one for myself because I just really love that target. I like
Yeah, it's an awesome yarn. That's what I was thinking.
it's cozy and warm and it's very light. I like the weight of it.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
You amaze me because I'm thinking of knitting 3 sweaters of the same pattern and getting it done so that you could wear it in this lifetime just beyond me.
Well, it's my job, so
Yeah, but still. My
Yeah.
job is being retired. I can do what I want, right?
yeah, yeah. I like your hair, Michelle. Looks cute today.
Just trying just to get a little up and messy.
Anybody else have any questions?
No, but I did figure out the why it was 132 to 143 pounds.
Why is that?
It's a conversion from kilograms.
Oh, from that makes sense.
Yeah, 60 to 65 kilograms.
Oh, that I don't know why I didn't think of that, Christy. You're so smart.
It's just still a small range, though. 60 to 65. I mean, do they ever weigh 66 kilograms?
They do. I'm sure they do.
Julie put in the chat a picture of a baby one. Super cute.
Oh, good.
Polish the yarn.
What did she ask?
Oh, that is cute.
Allison, can you just ask your question out loud? Can you see the question, Michelle? I think she put a question. Somebody put a question in the chat.
Let me see. I can see it. She says, is there any chance you can publish the yarn amounts for the sweater, different chest sizes?
Not until I get the pattern from the tech editor. So we don't have sizing or yardage yet, but the medium size that's on the mannequin is 5 skeins, and that's a 41-inch chest. Usually with a sweater, the difference between sizes is 150 yards or so. But with cables, you might want to be a little more generous. So, but 5 skeins should also be enough for the next size up, I would think. But we'll know really soon. When we get the yardages, we'll let you know. We can put it maybe we can put it on the yarn page, even something. I might have those by Monday or Tuesday.
And
yes.
And do you foresee carrying more of this in the shop in the future?
We can. I mean, we didn't plan on it. And it's not gone yet. So there's still some there. We didn't plan on it, but we can get more.
Okay.
Yeah. We have with the barn box yarns, we don't often go back and get more, but if something is like super popular and it seems like it would sell, we will.
How do you decide that you want to do more? I mean,
if it sells out in a day, then and we bring in more and that sells out again. And
okay.
I mean, it just depends. We do play it by ear. I mean, we really can't afford to have stuff sitting around. So when we order for barn box, we generally order 100 or 150 skeins extra. So we kind of take our temperature from there.
Okay.
And if something sits and sits and sits, we know that we're not going to get that again. And if something sells out immediately and we can easily get more, we get it. Some things sell out immediately and we can't get more. It just really, that's the culture of barn box, is that we bring you like things that truly are, unusual and rare and generally hard to get. But with some of these breeds, the organization around the breed management and the network of breeders is much more organized and focused on their success. So they make sure that people can get their hands on the wool.
Mhm.
Other breed associations and networks are just not that well organized.
Okay.
I don't know if you remember when we did the Wensleydale, there was just one internet article after another of talking about how proud they are of their heritage. You know, they were just trying, the farmers in Great Britain outdo each other trying to make sure people know about Wensleydale, you know, and it pays off for them. Other breeds have a harder time getting that foothold, and a network established, and for whatever reasons, maybe the sheep are raised in a very remote location and internet access isn't good, and access to other breeders isn't good, and maybe people who try to form an organization are too ornery and they just can't get along with each other, or they're too competitive and they don't see the value in organizing communally and having co-ops and things like that. So it just depends. It's just not as organized, except on the commercial level. On the commercial level, where everything is white wool and everything is about high efficiency and getting wool to market, there's everything to be gained by, and everything to be lost by, not getting along with people. But with our breeds that we're doing is just more a wider range of approaches, I guess is the best way to put it. Like any small business, it really varies. Anybody else have questions? Are there more questions in the chat? Oh, can we highlight the sweater screen? Hang on. Michelle, can you turn around and put the camera on the sweater where we can see it full length, and then I will pin it. Let's see.
1 second. Okay.
You gotta back up a bit, I think. Because don't forget, these squares are horizontal, I think, for most people. So there's the sweater. And then let me see if I have that picture you sent me. And this is good because the model is slim, but she's busty. So she definitely fills out the sweater. Now, let me see. Okay, I'm going to try to share this picture of the sweater on the model. Poor audience, we're doing a lot of talking to ourselves here. About that. Okay.
Not going anywhere.
Yeah, sorry. Other questions, anybody? Or any concerns you want to bring up? We have a lot going on in the next couple months between now and the next barn box. We have Rhinebeck coming up in just 3 weeks, which is in the Hudson Valley of New York State at the Dutchess County Fairgrounds, and we have a wonderful booth there that we have a lot of fun that weekend. So if you're in the vicinity and want to come, or if you're coming to the vicinity just to come to the show, we would love to see you there. And so that's a big event. And laying on the chair there is the crochet project that Jose made for us.
Yes.
Yarn Discovery Tour.
Open it. It was on the mannequin, but I
Yeah.
moved it so I could
You
put the
switched it
sweater
out.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's reversible, so it's like
Pretty nice.
that.
Yep.
And then the other way has the new buttons, which I just realized yesterday we only have 3 left of the
Alright.
Cooper
Oh,
buttons.
we can get more of those. So
Yeah, those are the new ones.
just send me an email about that, because I'm all over the place here.
And then the wiffle is the other pattern, which is that one in right here. But
for the Yarn Discovery Tour. So the Yarn Discovery Tour, once you buy your passport and everything, if you if you spend $10 or more in any of the shops, any shop, you get a free pattern. So you'd have access to a free pattern. A raffle ticket for our shop basket, and much, much, much more.
This is also a new sample of the Haplander, just in case
Yeah, it's so
anybody's
fun.
asking.
Yeah.
This one Julie Pasternak made.
With all different shades of Shetlandia. It's really pretty.
Yes. And Janet modeled it.
And then after we get back from Rhinebeck, our Festivus season rolls out. So the week that we return from Rhinebeck, we'll be making this year's Festivus yarn available. The ebook of how many designers? 8 designers.
I think it's 9, including you. I think
9 designer pattern, or 9 designers patterns. Some of them have, 2 pieces like hats and mittens. And then the knit along will begin in November, first week of November, I think.
Yes.
And that will take us into mid-November, when we have Black Friday and another barn box coming up, which is also yummy, yummy, yummy fiber. So
I can't say too much about that one.
No.
I'm just scared to spoil it because I'm very excited for that one.
And this is my other new pattern, the Vespa cardigan, which was published a few weeks ago, but since the last farm box. So you guys didn't get to see this before the last farm box. And this is knit in Targhee Tango Sport, another light airy yarn that's makes really good garments for transitional weather like fall. And this one is knit in pieces and seamed and sewn up afterwards. So
I have the skein right here. It's
different construction.
Yeah. This is the Targhee. And that's what it looks like.
Yeah, malicious.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Any other questions? I don't know if I'm gonna. I'll try my best to make it to the knit along on Wednesday. I've had to come to Albany to help my mom out for a bit. So,
Anne,
yes.
how does this yarn do in lace?
I'm sorry.
How does it do in lace?
In place?
No, with a lace pattern.
Oh, well, you mean the black yarn?
Yeah.
Well, it's worsted weight, so as long as you're using a big enough needle, I would think it would be fine. It's not like super elastic, so it would hold its blocked shape really nicely. It wouldn't pull back and retract right away as soon as you unpin it or anything like that. I personally like dark color lace, and I love how the light can really illuminate the dark edges, the edges of the dark eyelets and things like that. So I think if you like knitting lace with heavy yarn or thicker yarn, I think it would be nice. And in terms of weight, it's a better worsted weight than, say, the Kent or the Better Breakfast, because it's much, much lighter per yard.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I mean, as a measure, just to give you an idea, this yarn has 250 yards in a 4-ounce skein, where the Better Breakfast has 220, and the Kent, I think, also has 220. So that's a considerable difference in 4 ounces, which means that the yarn itself is lighter. You get more yards per ounce.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And this was incredibly informational. I love this yarn even more now. Thank you so much for this.
Oh, you're very welcome, Sheila. I know you love every yarn, and I just love it that you're so into it, because when you first joined us, I remember you being like, "Why is there grass in my yarn?" You know. No, I'm not trying to single you out. It's just I have seen this like with so many people in Barn Box, the progression of your thoughts about wool and what's valuable and what's beautiful and what's usable even for some people has really advanced. And I love that so much. It really endears people to me.
You mean because we go from it's wool, what's the big deal, to, oh wow,
Or even more,
wool.
like we've seen people go from like, this is scratchy, I don't, you promised me something wonderful and this isn't it. And then, by the end they're really drooling over everything. It's just a really nice progression to get to.
Thanks for leading us.
It takes time, I get it.
I can't remember the last time I bought superwash yarn.
Or even thought about the grass in your yarn, right?
Oh, grass? What's that? Who cares? Right.
I have to say that I was already a lover of heritage breeds and minimally processed yarn when I discovered bare naked wools, but there is a tremendous quality difference in some of these minimally processed wools and yours. Mm-hmm. And you're dangerous, Anne. What can I say? I don't know anybody else anymore.
Well, we definitely want to produce yarn that's for knitting and for knitters that knitters will love. I mean, I'm not trying to turn people off and force people to love something that they hate. That's not the point. But just to find that balance with every different fiber, and to really have the honor of working with mills who want to do the same thing, because
it's really hit home now that I am really trying to knit through my stash and get a lot of things made for cold weather. Mm-hmm. And I see the difference. So thank you, Anne.
Yeah. All right. Anybody else have anything they want to say? Or all right, you guys, thank you for coming once again. And
thank you.
Hopefully I'll see you Wednesday. And if not, I'll try for Saturday, but I'll see you guys later.
Be well.
Enjoy your Black Welsh Mountain.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.